Good night, everyone. Tonight, my name is Irma J. Here to give you a word on tonight. And we're going to talk about God with my sanctuary in the mix of my isolation. So my journey had become to be at a standstill. I called myself in isolation season. But God was my sanctuary in the mix of my storm. In my trials and tribulation, I was down and out, cast down. It was at a point I had to receive help from my children, and my neighbor. I didn't know how things were gonna play out, how we gonna get things done. So I was at a point, I was moving forward, and sometimes things take a left. So the devil started hitting me back to back. It seemed like there was no ending story. But who knows? God is in control. It's in control. And when it was his time, it's right. He do things in his own divine time. When you think it's over, that's when God will show up. So I become anxious and frustrated, and my emotions was up and down. You know, my in my isolation I started struggling. My burdens had started becoming to be too heavy. The devil was trying to break me, but I didn't let the devil break me. Because see, when you in, I went through so much. I'm going through so much, you know, but I'm still keeping my mind intact, you know, feeding my mind with God's word 24 hours a day. That's all. When you in your drought, that's all you can do is read. You can read and read that God word to keep your mind intact. God will keep your mind in perfect peace. So I had prayed to God. I prayed to God to ease my burden. Because everything was just overflowing. Everything was coming to me. I ain't know how this was gonna get paid. I ain't know how nothing was gonna get done. You know, but I know God is the only one who can deliver me from this bondage. He's the only one that can turn my situation around. The only one. So in the meantime, I kept my command going. So when you in your storm, you don't want to keep your command going, no matter what. So I kept doing my missionary, and I still was putting my package out, even though it couldn't get nowhere. Until the time was right for God to deliver me from this bondage. But I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision. If I want to stay frustrated, I was going to try to get peace in this storm. Find some kind of solution in this storm. So I had started searching the scriptures from the Bible to the book of Norman, trying to get understanding and trying to get knowledge. Because see, the book of Norman, that's all they went through is trials. So I was searching and trying to get knowledge of how God delivered them. And so I read so much. I was able to start finding peace in my storm. I stopped having anxiety. Every now and then, since it's a long storm, you're gonna get it every now and then. But I know how to toss it on the side. Because you don't want to be frustrated and anxious all the time. You want peace in your trials and tribulations, because we can't get around it. Peter said you're gonna have to go through your trials and tribulations. So then I was able, to deal with my trials and tribulations. I was reading so much, getting so much knowledge of the trials and tribulations in Book of Norman. And so God saw, He saw that I had found sanctuary in my drought. Because I started humbling myself, I started being more calm. I was going day to day, day to day. And so God had started being my sanctuary in my storm. He made sure I had food and something to drink, and God was carrying me this whole time, just like He carried the Israelite. There was one of them, they was going through that wilderness. It took them 40 years. It was supposed to take 3 days, but it took them 40 years. But he was that sanctuary in their stone. He dropped food down there for them. He made sure they had something to drink. And that's the same thing he was doing with me. Making sure I had something to eat, something to drink. So I had started taking my focus off my problem and put my focus towards God. And he made a way out of no way. Because see, God wants us to see we got to be able to deal with our trials and tribulation. And so he's not gonna deliver us until we get it. Till we get it. And so he started making a way out of no way. Just like he was with David. Running in that cage, backwards and forward. God was with him the whole time, just like he was with Joe the whole time. So God was with me this whole time. He was carrying me through this storm. He wanted me to get it. He wanted me to find my sanctuary in this stone. And I found it, by reading the Bible, reading that Bible and getting knowledge, getting knowledge. Now, God was my sanctuary in the mix of my isolation, in the mix of my isolation. He made sure I didn't starve. He made sure I didn't starve. I had food and drinks until it was overflowing. They started bringing cases of water, boxes of food. He was my sanctuary in my storm. When I thought it was over, God was there. When I thought I was gonna starve in this house, God was there. When I was thirsty and didn't know where I'm gonna get water from, God was there. So when you feel like you in a storm and you feel like there's no way out, you feel like it's a long storm, there's no ending to it, remember God is in control. God is in control of the storm. He gonna carry you. He gonna look out for you. He gonna make a way out of no way. And so God saw that I had found sanctuary in my storm. He saw I started being calm, and I was so happy, and I found joy in breathing. The Bible in Book of Norman. That was my peace right there. And so God, you're really supposed to rejoice in our trials and tribulations, but that's hard to do. But when he saw I had joy in breathing, I was finding my peace, God stepped in. He stepped in and being my sanctuary. I went from nothing to boxes of stuff, cases of stuff, and he will keep on making a way out of no way. Once we start humbling ourselves to him, once we start focusing ourselves to God. I had to take my focus, I had to stop crying and being frustrated and take my focus off of my problem and put my focus towards God. And see, that's what David did. That's what he wrote all these songs about. He had to take his focus off his problem, his situation, and put his focus on God. A lot of time we be overwhelmed with our problem, so we forget, who to really talk to our problem to. We trying to handle it ourselves. We supposed to turn our problem over to God and let God take care. Long as we, talking to myself, long as we trying to handle it ourselves, God is not going to step in. Long as we keep mumbling and complaining, that's the longest we be in our trial. That's why the Israelites had to go 40 years, because they mumbled and complained the whole time. Even though it was the next generation had to get the punishment that the generation didn't receive. So we have to deal with our trials and tribulation. We're really supposed to rejoice in our trials and tribulation. I start feeling joy in my trials and tribulation by constantly reading. When I ain't got nothing to do, I read all day long. And there's nothing else to do in your isolation, and I was dealing with drought. So that's my testimony of God with my sanctuary in the midst of my isolation. When you think it's over, God is there. God will save. And when the time is right, His divine time, you see what God will do. He will ease your burden first, and when the time is right, then He will deliver you from your bondage. He'll deliver you from your bondage. But in the meantime, He ease my burden, so I was able to deal with my trials. Because I couldn't deal with it then. I was just so frustrated. I'm like, I don't know what to do. The devil just coming at me with one issue to another. Because when the devil can't bring you down, the devil try to weigh you out. The devil try to break you. When the devil can't break you, it will weigh you. He wants to weigh you out. And so I did not let the devil break me. I'll try to keep my mind intact by keeping my mind focused on God's word. So that's all I have for you today. Just keep your mind focused on God's word. Just keep reading that Bible, and you will really receive your joy and peace from God's word. I see y'all on the next video, and y'all have a nice day.